This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The guest tonight, I mean, I've told everybody up there in New York at the station, I said, any Sopranos people you could get me, please get me. I've spoken to a few in the past on my previous programs and whatnot, and I am a huge fan of the show, more so than anybody. People go, oh, no, I'm a fan too. No, I've watched the damn thing 20 times over. And Robert Funaro, how are you, my friend?
Anthony, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm doing fine.
I love it. You, of course, were Eugene Pontecorvo on The Sopranos and a peripheral character until that members-only episode, which is just so pivotal. It's a pivotal episode to the entire series.
Yeah.
You were of course in that episode featured, but a lot of things happened in that episode. That's the episode. It was the first episode of season 6, and Tony gets shot at the end of that episode by Uncle Junior. So a lot was going on there, but your storyline was pretty pivotal. But here's something else. You were a standout character in so many things, memorable events of the show. When you smashed the bottle into little Paulie's face.
What'd you say?
It's one of the best, memorable, funny moments. Yeah. And again, only The Sopranos could do those violent moments and have them hysterically funny. But you always popped up in moments like that. And busting balls never seems to work, does it, Robert?
Oh, never does. Yeah, both those episodes are really pivotal into the my time on The Sopranos. But up until members only, it was that Snapple bottle. People would come up to me and it's a nice shot, and I said, "Will I be remembered? I studied Shakespeare. I did all this classical. I'll be remembered by a Snapple bottle." So when I got the script for members only, when David called me up, because he called everybody up and he said, "I got good news and bad news. And what's the good news, David?" "Well, the good news is we wrote this show, and it's all about you, and you're a big part of the show. What's the bad news? You're dead."
Yeah.
But when I read the script, what came to mind was, and I don't compare myself with Marlon Brando, but he talked about Waterfront. I could have been a contender.
Yep.
Could have been somebody. It's the way people felt that, they could have been somebody. So I felt like with Eugene, he wanted to get out. How many people want to get out, especially nowadays from what they're doing, especially with all the 401k? I wish I got out because I got out prior to all this stuff. But anyway, so I knew that it would be a show that people would be remembered and they would feel the pain that I felt. And of course, they went through it already. So a lot of people do.
It was such a great episode and storyline for you because it showed this hope that maybe you could get out of the situation you were in, and the delusion of somebody thinking, I could just leave. I could just pick up and leave. I have money. You were given that inheritance, a couple of $1 million, and you think, well, as long as I have the money, I can just start a new life. But you got yourself in so deep that there was no getting out.
Well, Terry Winter, who won the Emmy Award for that particular episode that year, for the best dramatic episode. I was glad to, really blessed to be a part of it. They just kept on creating things like my son with the drugs and everything, making kind of like the walls close in on me. And so they kept like, we'll get a new thing for you to do before you hang yourself. So, okay. So it was just like really a lot of pressure, under pressure.
Yeah. To fit that into one episode, because obviously you were there from, I think, season 3.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
You were there. But season 6, episode 1, your storyline really picks up and then comes to fruition by the end of the episode. It's the end of you.
Yes.
Or the end of
Eugene.
of course.
Yeah.
Did you have any issues with the script going, well, you're kind of wrapping it up pretty quickly here?
Well, no, I mean, the thing was, it was a great script, Anthony. And as I said in the example of Waterfront, I knew that I'd be remembered for people can empathize with this kind of person, with Eugene. And a lot of people come up to me, and the first thing they say, he should have let you out, should have let you go to Florida. So I mean, this is what happens. But we didn't know about Tony getting shot. So the scripts are really kept very clandestinely.
Right.
And there were no leaks. So I didn't even know myself until I watched it that Tony was going to get shot.
Yeah, you know what? Another thing is that people don't realize is because Tony's the bad guy in that episode going, come on, let Eugene go with his wife and go to Florida.
What are you, a hockey player?
Yeah.
Well, what are you, hockey? What are you, Wayne Gretzky? You don't retire from this thing of ours.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you. It was, they don't understand. It wasn't just Tony. The FBI, who you had already flipped, you'd gone to the FBI, they told you, give up on the Florida dream.
Yeah.
But everyone, for some reason, everyone thinks Tony was the one that kept you from going to Florida. But even if he said, okay, you were never getting out from under the FBI.
No, I mean, people come up to me, Anthony, and say, you were a rat. And I tell them, no, I wasn't a rat because nothing I ever said implicated Tony. I killed myself. You know what I'm saying? I didn't stool out on the guy. I wasn't a stool pigeon. But many people come up to me and say, you shouldn't have said anything. I didn't say nothing. I didn't do anything. It's crazy here in New York City. These fans are crazy, these Sopranos fans.
Now, believe me, I understand this. And every time I read stuff, because you always get questions about the last episode, you get questions about things that happened during the entire series. And the answer a lot of the actors and people involved in the show give is, well, it was in the script. It was written that way. But there is this element where I think the person that played the character and put that much work into developing the character can make these assumptions on what might have happened that wasn't in the show based on your knowledge of the character himself. And I want to ask you a question that kind of goes on those lines. What do you think was the most likely reason Eugene would have flipped?
Well, to get out. I mean, that was the only way to get out. He would get a witness protection program like some of the people we know. I won't name names, but that was that was the thing. They could get him out and he would flip, but it wasn't going to happen. So in that case, he was going to. In that case, when he found that out, then that was it. But a lot of this stuff I talk about in the homemade book, the recipe book, and
all right, please,
yes.
Don't let me stop you. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I talk about how I met James. We did Streetcar Named Desire, 8-9 years prior to Sopranos,
right?
And we toured Scandinavia. And one day came down to Caroline's, found out where I was working, and through a friend at the comedy club, went up to him at a party, said, I get a job for your friend Bobby Funaro. And he came down, he went with Joe Fay as driver, and he knew I was at a comedy club, but he tried 3 or 4 of them until he found me at Caroline's. He couldn't remember the club. And he offered me an audition. And from then on, in 2000, I began working on the show. I landed a role. He couldn't promise me anything, but he said, I'll get you the audition. So he sent the elevator down, as Jack Lemmon said. But all these things are in homemade, but in the book that I wrote, and they're coupled with great Italian recipes, So, and I talk about I took 8 episodes and I kind of put them together because I'm really not a writer. And when Andrew Jedlicka, my manager, who co-wrote the book, said, let's do a book, I said, you're crazy. Another book by a soprano or an actor, it's nuts. So if I can bookend it, I'll pick 8 episodes, I'll talk about the Sopranos, and I'll couple it with a recipe. And it's simple and it's interesting.
Do you have Mario Battelli's green beans and Parmesan? Oh, Tony the gnocchi, you gotta have.
And I got a copy for you too. I left it at the studio here.
Thank you. I'll
Yes.
pick that up
Yes.
this coming weekend. I'm going up to New York. You a New York guy?
Yes, I am. Brooklyn born, Coney Island, and then
man, okay,
moved over to Staten Island.
You are New York. What did you do early days in the city? You mentioned Caroline's. I used to go there when I was doing the O&A show and all the comics. would do our show. Caroline's was great.
Yeah, it was great, and it's closed. It's just such a shame. It really was a landmark, and they let it close. I couldn't believe it. It was all about money, Anthony. It's always about that. But it should have never happened.
The Scuttle.
It was Broadway, Broadway, and the comedians were great. Charles Fleischer, Seinfeld came in from time to time, and great Dave Chappelle, Jim Gaffigan, not Jimmy Kimmel, not Jimmy Kimmel,
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon, right? Jimmy Fallon. Yeah. I knew Jimmy Fallon when he had a guitar and his tail between, trying to get his set. When he just, I knew him before he blew up.
Which is hilarious because he looks like a kid now.
Yeah.
When you saw him back in those days, it's like a 12-year-old was walking around trying to,
I
make
gotta
it
tell
in
you,
comedy and stuff.
Yeah, he was just like, he has his guitar and he's so nice. He was so nice. Then I saw him on the set because I did one of his first films and they cut me out too. I'm going to get him for that. Yeah. I did a little small spot and I can't believe I knew this guy and he let him cut me out.
Bastards.
Yeah,
that's how it is, though. You've been in it. You know how. You know how that.
But
works.
us Italians, Anthony, we got loyalty and trust. We don't do these things.
You're right. You're right. It's all about loyalty, trust, family. Yeah. These things. It is. I guess. I guess that was the reason that David Chase chose so many Italians to play Italians in The Sopranos.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a metaphor for, if you watched his documentary, which is good.
Yeah,
Wise
I did.
Guy.
Yep.
It's really a metaphor for his whole entire life. But he used Tony Soprano as an example of his life. It's ironic, of course. He wrote for Northern Exposure and everything, but it's everything he went through, the therapist and stuff like that. I'm not saying I don't know anything about that, but I know that Tony, even though he had all that stuff, he was still miserable.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get over it,
I would defy anybody to be able to write a character like Livia Soprano without having lived somebody like that.
Yes.
You can't just pull that out of thin air.
Yes.
That was an amazingly horrific character in the series.
Jules Pfeiffer, the great writer, he just passed away. He wrote some plays. He has this one piece in this play called Hold Me. It's about a person. It's called Pulitzer Prize. He did this. He won the Pulitzer Prize, and his father was never impressed. And then he says, I won the Nobel Peace Prize. My father dropped dead. Who says you can't win them all? It's like Tony Soprano and Livia,
Yeah. Well, there's so many subtle lines in that show that harken back to other things. When Livia used to go, "Oh, poor you," and then when Tony turns to Carmela during their big argument.
Right.
That Emmy award-winning argument, and he goes, "Oh, poor you!" Like those little things, and you catch these on the third, fourth viewing of the entire series, which I'm honest with you, it may be 10, 11 times. I lost count how many times I watched all the way through, and you always catch little things like, "Oh, I didn't realize that connected to this," and that kind of goes into something else I wanted to ask you. You initially tried out, or they wanted you for Ralph Cifaretto? What happened there?
I auditioned for Ralph Cifaretto. So when I did Stanley and with James, and he played Mitch. So that Stanley that I did, because he was antagonistic Stanley, and James thought of me for Ralph Cifaretto. So I landed the role and I signed the contract. But then when we started shooting, there was a chemistry that. And finally David said, you're just too nice guys.
Wow.
And he didn't like the chemistry. And they started graying my hair to make this contrast because we're two big guys. And, it just didn't work, that antagonistic thing. So they chose, Joe Pantaleone, who was great. And then David said, You still want to be on the show? Of course I want to be on the show.
No,
So,
I'm out.
So no, I don't want to be on the show. I'm out of here. So I'm going to be another story. You know, how many stories have you heard, Anthony? Like, yeah, he was there, but, they didn't like him. And, now he's working, whatever he's working.
I turned him down.
How many stories?
That band I turned down was the Beatles.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. But
go.
David they didn't like me. So anyway, James didn't let that happen. I think James, they kept me on the show. And Terrence Winter said, we're going to create a character. His name is Eugene. Who is Eugene? Don't worry about it. We'll find out who he is as we go along. And that's what they did. A lot of the Sopranos, we hung out in the studio, Silver Cup, and the writers got to know us and everything. Like we went to the racetrack and that great scene with that, I forgot the character's name. He said, I won. And I don't know, I think Stevie looks at the ticket, he says, you won $3.
$3.
Yeah. So that really happened.
I bet it to show.
That really happened. And I don't want to name the name who it happened to, but I say it in the book who it happened to.
It's pretty interesting that, you as a character, Eugene's character, I mean, he was a sympathetic character. Yeah. And that's odd because we see him shoot a man in the face.
Yeah.
We see him, involved with some pretty terrible things. Yeah. And somehow he's sympathetic. Whereas Ralph, even when his son was shot with the arrow and he's crying and hugging Tony, you just could not muster up sympathy for that guy. And I think that might have been what they saw in the difference between you playing Ralph and what's his name? Oh my God, I'm terrible.
Joe Pantaleone.
Yeah, Pants.
Yeah, Joey Pants. Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, they got to know us and everything, and they got to know who I was as a person, as I said, and they came up with that script. I really never sat down with Terry and asked him, how'd you come up with that? Where'd you get that? Was it a daydream? Was it a dream itself? What did you read about it in a book and just wanted to hang me? What's up with that?
Right.
It was really great. As I said, I think it was a blessing from God for myself. You know what I mean? It really was because it opened up so many doors for me, and still to this day, really, it's people really remember it.
No doubt. I wonder, a lot of people wonder, because it's kind of a common question about when you're in that moment and you're filming those episodes, and maybe not by episode 6. I think by that point, you guys knew that you were on a juggernaut. But early on, even season 3, when you came on, the longevity of this, the passion for The Sopranos, did you have that clue?
And coming in on season 3, it wasn't apparent to me. But as I progressed in it, I said, man, this is like the Beatles, man. This is what they must have felt like.
Right.
Opening at the Ziegfeld with 1 million people there. And, especially season 6, this is the same feeling as the Beatles. I want to play this song again and again and again, But you really, Anthony, the main thing is that as an actor, you don't really know what you have when you're doing it. It's like you're standing on a whale and you're fishing for minnows. You know what I mean? You really are like, it's just like that. It just goes so fast. And
it is the hindsight you get.
If it happened again on another show, I just, every actor just wants to work and so it was a real blessing. And you can't listen, you can't get it back. You can't look at yesterday. You got to move forward, right?
No, not at all. You could appreciate what you had, and obviously the fans, you could appreciate that. We're going to take a real quick break. We'll come back with you, Robert, and talk about a few things, especially, the members only jacket, the restaurant, the thing, all that you've talked about 1,000 times. But I got you, and I need to hear about this. We'll be back with Robert Funaro in moments. Stick around.
Go further with the American Express Business Gold Card. Earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels when you book through AmexTravel.com. Whether your destination is a business conference or a client meeting, your purchases will help you earn more points for future trips. Experience more on your travels with Amex Business Gold. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost. so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
Welcome back, Anthony Cumia Show. We're talking to Robert Funaro, Eugene Pantacorvo from
Nice.
The Sopranos. Oh, you got to trill those R's, man. I love it. Robert, I got to ask you, first of all, everybody that died on the show got that talk, and you spoke about that earlier from David Chase, but you had to get, hey, not only die, but you're a rat too. What was worse for you? I'm of course leaving the show if you're dead, but it's like, you got to make me a rat too.
Yeah, they added a lot of that stuff because as I said, they wanted the walls to close in on Eugene. But I really never considered myself, because I knew the ending, that I was a rat, that I wasn't going to get out. So I mean, it showed this compassion, I guess, for my wife and my child,
Right.
to get out. So, it just added to, that resistance, just made the character it fleshed out the character even more. But as I said to you before, I really never considered myself a rat, because I don't think I would have ever really implicated Tony, really wholeheartedly. You know what I mean?
But you had to know. Anyone would have to know being a rat isn't going to end well. It
No.
doesn't end well for a lot of the people on the show.
Yeah.
So, you're probably like, I was just thinking maybe you thought it might have sullied the character a little bit. Like, God, I don't want to be a rat before I die.
Yeah, no, I really never thought about it, because I guess I knew the ending, so I really never thought about it. I really didn't
See,
look
that's
at it
another
that way,
fan question where I'm like, and you go, dude, it's the script. Shut up.
Well, it's like I told you before. People come up to me and they say, well, if it did happen that way, you're probably right. I would have implicated Tony and went on the witness protection program.
Right.
But like Sammy.
Right,
but
yeah.
Sammy did that. It didn't happen. It didn't happen, so.
I also got to ask you, because your death scene is one of the most graphic, disturbing death scenes in cinema history. Yeah. Anyone's death. How did you feel about that when you watched it back? Even though you were there doing it, did you think like, my God, that is brutal?
It kept me on that rope a long time. I know.
They did, huh?
Yeah, I think it's one of the longest, maybe on television. It's because they show the rope, boom, and you know what I mean.
Right.
And then they shoot right. They close up of the legs or something, close up of something, and then they cut away. But it made it just that like a Turkish toffee kind of a thing. But I did a little research into it. Like if you see me like kind of with the reflexes and everything like that, I spoke to my brother who's a physician, and Richard Funaro, my brother, and he told me that sometimes when that happens, there's a little reflexive action just before you kick the bucket, kind of your last breath. Or whatever, if there was a last breath, because you're on a rope. But that, I put that in there myself. And, Tim, when I was doing it, he just came up to me and said to me, Tim Van Patten, great director,
yeah,
who directed
someone direct
Emmy Award-winning director. And he just said, just stay with it, because, between takes, just stay with it. We really never stepped away. I stayed with it and stay in that time period, stay in that with that feeling. I think we captured that moment, and I think his fear really came across, that essence of the fear, with losing your life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
The it's that slow gradient movement off the mortal coil. Because at first it's a struggle,
and then they put. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when Terry put in the portfolio, when I was looking at my son, and when I'm looking at the portfolio, what is that? What do you call those? I guess the pictures of
an
my
album,
film.
the
photo album. Yes, I thought that was poignant, and that was just great. Terry writing that, and then juxtaposed to On the Rope. You know what I mean? To my eye, that shot close up of the eyes. It was really cool the way they put that together.
Well, that was another thing, because you say how these things are usually done, and there's kind of a pat thing that they do when someone hangs themselves in a movie to not make it that disturbing, and it's kind of been done before, but this one, the transition from you looking at the album and then seeing your face, and you just look very pale and very distraught and disturbed. And no one knows at that moment that you have a noose around your neck. And it was a little, not even close, but reminiscent of Shawshank.
Yeah.
When, what's his name?
Charles Whitcomb.
Yeah, yes.
Riley.
When he hung himself, because it was unexpected. It looked like he was just going to carve his name up there. Yeah. It's that unexpected thing where everyone just goes, oh my God, that's insane.
As an actor, I mean, there was no method to that. Just the thought of being up there and doing that itself, committing suicide, was just, and you know what? It's funny because I had some fans call me up and say, you know what, Bobby, I was thinking about committing, and you saved my life.
Wow.
I mean, believe it or not, one or two people have told me that, and I said, "Wow, that's cool, man. I'm glad you stuck around."
Bob, just fantastic talk to you. I got to run. We're on a schedule here for some reason, but thank you, Robert Funaro. Your book, spit it out real quick.
Homemade by Robert Funaro will be at Chico and Sons in Northfield, New Jersey, Tilton Road. April 26th, and in Barnes & Noble in Brick, New Jersey, April 27th at 12 p.m. both times, signing autographs, taking pictures. And at Chico and Sons, who make the best heroes, they are giving away a free hero, the Eugene, with a signed copy of the book if you would like to have it, buy the book. So
thanks so much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Anthony.
you, Bob. Good talking to you, man.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Be right back.